On the night of December 29th, 1972, Eastern Airlines Flight 401 was about to become one of aviation's most tragic disasters. The aircraft was a brand-new Lockheed L-1011 TriStar, state-of-the-art technology for its time. Departing from New York's JFK Airport, bound for Miami International. 163 passengers and 13 crew members settled in for what should have been a routine flight. The flight had been completely uneventful, with calm weather and clear visibility. As they neared Miami, everything seemed perfect. But then, something went wrong, something that would change aviation forever. As the plane began its approach to Miami, the cockpit crew noticed the nose landing gear indicator light had failed to illuminate. Was it just a burned-out bulb, or had the landing gear failed to deploy? The pilots made a fateful decision. They put the plane on autopilot while they investigated the problem. The autopilot would keep them safe while they worked. The first officer sent the flight engineer down to the nose landing gear bay to physically inspect the gear. But it was too dark to see anything. Meanwhile, the captain and crew focused on changing the light bulb in the cockpit indicator. But during this process, something terrible happened. Something no one noticed. The captain accidentally bumped the control column, disengaging the autopilot. Without them realizing it, the aircraft began to slowly descend, completely unnoticed by the distracted crew. Multiple warnings sounded. The altitude indicator, vertical speed indicator, autopilot display. But the crew was so distracted, they failed to notice the plane losing altitude. Less than a minute later, the pilots realized something was wrong. But it was too late. Flight 401 crashed into the Florida Everglades at 11:42 p.m., breaking apart and scattering wreckage over 50 square kilometers. The marshland became a graveyard for 101 souls, including the captain and flight engineer. Survivors were pulled from the swamp, many suffering injuries and infections from the harsh environment. The aviation world was stunned. New safety protocols were developed. Crew resource management was born. But the story of Flight 401 doesn't end with the crash. In the years that followed, something else began to happen. Something that defied explanation. The National Transportation Safety Board launched a comprehensive investigation into the crash. The wreckage told the story of a perfectly functioning aircraft brought down by human error. The cockpit voice recorder revealed the crew's final moments, their confusion and desperate attempts to save the aircraft. The investigation revealed a perfect storm of factors: distraction, poor communication, and a single moment of inattention that cost 101 lives. The tragedy led to revolutionary changes in aviation safety and pilot training procedures. Crew resource management became standard, teaching pilots to work as a team and communicate effectively. New checklists, procedures, and safety systems were implemented across the industry. Flight 401 had changed aviation forever. But for Eastern Airlines, the changes were just beginning. Eastern Airlines continued operations, incorporating salvaged parts from Flight 401 into other aircraft. Undamaged components were cleaned, inspected, and installed in other L-1011s in the fleet. Galley equipment, seats, instruments, all deemed airworthy and put back into service. But soon, Eastern Airlines crews began reporting something impossible, something that would terrify even the most experienced pilots. It started with isolated reports from flight crews, strange occurrences during routine flights. Pilots reported seeing figures in the cockpit, figures that shouldn't have been there. The apparitions resembled crew members from Flight 401. particularly Captain Robert Loft and flight engineer Donald Repo. Both men had died in the crash, yet crews swore they saw them working at their stations. Flight attendants reported hearing unexplained noises from the galley areas where salvaged equipment had been installed. Lights would flicker without cause, instruments would malfunction mysteriously. More and more crew members came forward with similar experiences, all involving aircraft with Flight 401 components. The reports became so frequent and consistent that Eastern Airlines management could no longer ignore them. Eastern Airlines executives found themselves facing an unprecedented crisis. How do you handle ghost sightings in your fleet? They began documenting every report, trying to find rational explanations for the supernatural encounters. In desperation, Eastern Airlines even brought in priests to bless some aircraft, hoping to rid them of restless spirits. But the spirits of Flight 401 were not so easily dismissed. The encounters continued, and they were about to become even more terrifying. What happened next would cement Flight 401 as one of aviation's most haunting legends. The dead, it seemed, were not ready to rest. Pilots reported detailed encounters with Captain Robert Loft, appearing as a translucent figure in the cockpit. Flight engineer Donald Repo was seen even more frequently, still trying to complete his final inspection. Some witnesses claimed the spirits would actually communicate, warning of potential mechanical problems. Flight attendants reported conversations with passengers who simply vanished when they turned away, leaving only empty seats. In one documented case, a flight attendant reported seeing Donald Repo in the galley, warning of a fire in the engine. When the aircraft was inspected, they found exactly what Repo had warned about: a potential engine fire. Captain Loft was reported to have appeared to pilots, pointing out instrument readings they had missed. These weren't just stories. They were documented encounters witnessed by multiple crew members. Word of the hauntings spread beyond Eastern Airlines, capturing the attention of the media and the public. Paranormal investigators and authors documented the encounters, making Flight 401 famous worldwide. Crew members went public with their experiences, despite potential career consequences. The ghosts of Flight 401 became more than just airline folklore. They became a symbol of unfinished business, of souls unable to rest. Eventually, Eastern Airlines quietly began removing all salvaged parts from Flight 401, hoping to end the hauntings. The haunted components were retired, stored away from active aircraft. Gradually, the supernatural encounters decreased, though they never completely stopped. But the legend of Flight 401 had already taken on a life of its own, becoming part of aviation history forever. Today, the crash site in the Everglades serves as an unofficial memorial to the 101 souls lost that December night. Nature has reclaimed the wreckage, but locals say the spirits still linger in the swampland. Visitors to the area report strange lights, unexplained sounds, and an overwhelming sense of presence. A memorial ensures that the victims of Flight 401 are remembered not just as ghost story characters, but as real people with real lives. The safety improvements born from this tragedy have saved countless lives in the decades since. Every pilot trained in crew resource management carries forward the lessons learned from Flight 401. Flight 401 remains a chilling reminder that some tragedies transcend death itself, leaving echoes that refuse to fade. The ghosts of Flight 401 may have found peace, but their legend lives on in the annals of aviation history. Some say that on quiet nights in the Everglades, you can still hear the sound of engines and see lights that shouldn't be there. You can still hear the sound of engines and see lights that shouldn't be there. The ghosts of Flight 4 Everglades